Jordan from Unidesk. I just want to give you guys a quick welcome and say thank you for attending today's webinar with Coretek and Unidesk. And I just want to go over a few quick logistics and then I'll stop talking and we can get going. This webinar is being recorded, so if you are getting in late or have to leave early or someone that you know wanted to see it but couldn't attend live, we will have it on demand within a day or two after this. And then also we want you to ask a lot of questions, so please enter those into the questions panel. You'll see that in your GoToWebinar console. Don't do it in the chat, do it in the questions one because that's what we'll be monitoring. So if they apply to what we're talking about right then, we'll try and ask it. If not, we'll save it for the end. So those are the logistics I have, and with that, I will turn it over to Cindy from Coretek.
Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be here. So today we're going to be telling the story of Munson Medical Center's journey through their VDI deployment and the challenges that they faced and how they solved those challenges. Jordan, you want to go ahead and get to the next screen? So we'll stay true to our agenda, give you some background about Coretek and Munson, and then we'll talk about that specific workflow challenge and then the application challenge and how Unidesk came in to solve that. And then talk about some of the next steps that Munson is taking as well as next steps for that might be pertinent to those of you on the phone. So I want to start out by saying that it has been Coretek's pleasure to join Munson Medical Center in their journey to overcome those workflow challenges for their clinical users as well as their IT staff and admin users. They have a great story to tell, and I'm sure it will really resonate with the folks on the line about how Munson adopted VDI to solve those challenges, what the challenges were along the way through that adoption process, and how they continued to work through those. So Coretek Services and Munson, we were lucky enough to connect through a reference of a reference of a reference, several years ago, and we finally came together. But Munson chose Coretek to work with them on this journey because of Coretek's background in healthcare and virtualization. We've been around almost 10 years now, and our primary focus that entire 10 years has been on healthcare. We specialize in virtualization and infrastructure, and we do work across the whole United States in both small and large healthcare entities and other entities everywhere. We've been recognized as one of the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. We were, last year we were the Citrix Central Partner of the Year. We won the Citrix Virtualization Deal of the Year. We're also AppSense's Central Partner of the Year, and we're also an Imprivata Platinum sponsor, and we are a Unidesk certified solution provider as well. So all the key components that go into a successful VDI stack, we have strong partnerships with all of them. And we're also very proud of the fact that we've been on the 101 Best and Brightest Companies to Work for 6 years in a row, which is, I think, a record. Anyway, so enough about Coretek. Let's talk about Munson. And to talk about Munson, we have Scott Dingman on the line. He is a technical advisor for Munson Medical up in Traverse City, beautiful area of Michigan. So Scott, thanks so much for taking time today and joining us in this webinar and sharing your story, because you really do have a great story to tell. So a little bit of background there, headquartered in Traverse City, Michigan. Tell us a little bit more about your environment there. You have an award there as well, Truven Health Analytics Top 100 Hospitals, honored 14 times. I think your record beats Coretek's record, so congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you. That's an award we are very proud of. There's only a handful of hospitals that have earned that award 14 times. But as you can see there, we are located in Traverse City, Michigan. We are a regional healthcare provider. We are currently 3 hospitals. We are in the process of purchasing 2 more, so we'll be a total of 5 hospitals when we're done here. We cover a large geographical area, a couple hundred miles in all directions, so we have a large area up here to cover in northern Michigan.
So what's unique about that too is that in Traverse City proper, that's highly populated, and then you have it's a tourist area as well, so you have a lot of out-of-towners, and then those remote areas, you're talking about some pretty remote areas, so supporting those remote offices, that's entirely different than supporting the local hospital where it's heavily populated. So you have a pretty diverse area there that you're supporting.
Yeah, some of our remote hospitals are 60 to 70 miles from our main hospital here, so we have a lot of wide area connections, and how do we best provide services, and so that's why we started looking at virtual clinical workstations.
Right, and just like everybody else in healthcare across the whole U.S., what I'm hearing anyway is that patient admissions are up, but payments are down, which is really squeezing your margins. So IT budgets are shrinking, so you really need to find a way to do less with more. And virtualization of VDI can sometimes seem like a big cost up front, but yet there is an ROI, and there's huge benefits, especially when it comes to supporting those remote users.
Yeah, a lot of times what we in IT forget is that we are in the business of providing healthcare, and not so much, we're not an IT business. So what we end up doing a lot of times is on the back end, we may end up costing us a little bit more, but on the front end, it helps us meet our meaningful use, HIPAA, and all those other requirements on the front end for the care that we do provide, which is our primary business. And so in the long run, it does pay off to make that switch as far as meeting meaningful use, HIPAA, and also in management.
Right. So before we get to the next slide, the last thing I do want to point out here, which is a little bit unique about you folks, is that you host your own Cerner EMR internally. And I know that you said you've been using Cerner for so long that when you first started using them, that was the only option. But many, many healthcare organizations have their EMR hosted remotely. So that's kind of unique for you guys that you still host it internally, but I think that gives you greater control for the offices that you provide IT support for. Is that how you would frame that up?
Yeah, and like you said, we have been on Cerner since 2000, and at that time they didn't have remote hosted. But the other thing that keeps us hosting Cerner here internally is because of a remote location. Our connections out to the internet are not redundant. We don't have redundant paths, and so we need to keep that in-house so we can provide the uptime for our outlying hospitals and the main hospital itself.
Makes perfect sense. And then the flip side advantage to that is you have more control for personalization and customization of that package. So anyway, you touched a little bit about that. Let's talk about the workflow challenges that started you down the path of looking for a partner like Coretek that could help you with some of the challenges that you were facing.
Yeah, what we found out is, as IT, we thought we were in touch with our clinicians and what they were doing, and when we started down the VDI road, we did some shadowing of some of our providers and some of our nursing staff, and what we found out was actually very eye-opening. A lot of our clinicians are very ingenious, and they figured out how to use technology as little as possible because it was so cumbersome, and for us, that was a real slap in the face. We thought we were meeting the needs of our end users, and we were not. And so what we took away from that is we needed to make this technology as useful and as meaningful and as easy to use as a stethoscope around their neck. And that's what we shot for when we started down the VDI path.
That's a great analogy, as easy as the stethoscope around their neck. And I think you guys did that. But so you're right. And again, the challenges that you have are very common with healthcare that we see across the U.S. And it happens exactly like the bullet points point out here, that one user group screams for a solution, so you put in a solution, and then another group screams for a solution, so you put one in, and then somebody else wants something else, so you put it in. The next thing you know, you have all these bolted-on technologies, and none of them talk to each other, which then adds to the overhead and the cumbersomeness, if that's a word, to making a barrier to using those systems. And then you also had a lot of thick clients in the environment, like everybody does, because we're all just coming off the XP world. And so everybody's kind of facing that challenge. What did you do with those thick clients?
What we ended up doing with those thick clients, instead of just swapping those out with newer, faster PCs, what we did is we hardened those, and we basically made those into Windows 7 thin clients, which all our clinicians use to launch their virtual clinical workstation off of. We've integrated AppSense, Imprivata, and Citrix Desktop to provide us those features and functionalities for the clinicians.
Okay, but you're right, the quote at the bottom, at the end of the day, that's a good quote. At the end of the day, we realized we were failing our users, and so that was the eye-opening moment where you're like, okay, we got to do something here. And that brought you to the solution. So Jordan, if you can go to the next slide. So tell us about how you came upon this decision and how this worked for you.
Well, when we did our shadowing of our providers and our nursing staff, we found that even though they were staying on the same floor, they may have patients, at different ends of the hallway. They weren't assigned to a specific area, and they needed, and with the providers, I mean, they're between floors all the time. Their patients are all over the hospital, and they really needed the flexibility to be able to have something roam with them. Another big concern were login times. Login times prior to this were 45 to 50 seconds or longer, waiting for them to actually get to some point to where they could use, and we knew we had to decrease those times. So when we built our virtual clinical workstation, what we did is we used Imprivata One Sign-In to tap in with our badge. So when a clinician or a nurse comes in for the first time of the day, they tap in their badge, they enter their password, and it takes about 20 to 30 seconds to get to a functional, usable desktop and get their applications up and working. From there, what they can do is they can tap out, walk to another workstation, tap in again, and within 5 seconds, their desktop's back up where they were at with the patient information that was there available when they tapped out before. So what we've essentially done is giving the doctors and the nurses the ability to move and flow throughout the floors and throughout the hospital and give them the quick login times and greatly reduce the amount of time they're standing there waiting for the workstation to do something.
That's awesome. And then in addition to that, I know that it's a consistent experience as well. So it doesn't matter if they're on one of those hardened devices or any device that may be out on the floors, it's a consistent experience. So icons are where they expect them to be, and it's the same look and feel regardless of the device or regardless of the location of the device. So I know that's a huge benefit to them.
So no matter where they go, their virtual desktop is the same throughout the environment, and even if they go home and they log in remotely, it's the same desktop there for them, and it's right where they left it. So a lot of our clinicians we're finding out will log in the morning while they're having their coffee at home, get their things, get their desktop set up, and then when they come into the hospital, they tap in. 5 seconds, there's their desktop right where they left it when they left home, and they're right into their patient workflow for the day, and no waiting, no hesitations there.
That's awesome. So at the end of the day, you put in a solution that gave benefits to the clinicians, and IT realized benefits out of this as well. So by being able to repurpose those thick clients, you elongated that refresh cycle for those devices, so you're able to save money there. And now I see the bullet point here, 33% reduction in devices. You want to expound on that, why you have less devices, or why you can get away with less devices?
Yeah, what we found out is the reason when we did our shadowing of our clinicians, clinical staff, what we found out is they kept saying we need more PCs, we need more PCs, we need more PCs, and that was just due to the fact that a doctor or nurse would get on a single PC and they would just camp there and they didn't want to get off, and so there was never enough workstations on the floor to satisfy the need. With our virtual clinical workstation, what we found out was now that they can get in and out in under 5 seconds, we don't need as many devices on the floor. A lot of the floors we cut our the number of workstations on there by 15–20%, and because we can get our doctors and our nurses in and out so quick. So that's where we saw the reduction in device costs. Okay,
awesome. So less devices. You can keep old devices out there longer, you can repurpose them, and a reduction in software licensing as well. So I know that you were able to achieve a lower cost for your Microsoft Office licenses through AppSense, which was a pretty cool thing too. It was kind of a side benefit, I think.
Right, AppSense is one of the few applications that Microsoft will honor as far as reducing your license count. So we're using absence to limit the number of people who have access to Office, and that allowed us to save money on our ELA at the end of the day.
So I see that we have a question in the chat window here about what is meant by tap in and tap out.
By tap in, we use Improvada, and we use a PC Prox USB adapter, and so basically what they do is they walk up with their ID and they basically tap it on top of the USB reader, and that's associated with their login ID, and that logs them into the computer. First time of the day they have to put their password in, and then anytime after that they just take their badge and they tap it on top of the USB reader and they're in, or they log out.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but again, we work with healthcare all across the United States, but there's a universal language among doctors where they count clicks.
Yes.
So, everybody can relate to that. If you put something new in the environment, and any doctor or clinician will tell you the first thing is they're going to count how many clicks it takes them to get to where they need to go. And if you've added clicks to their day, they're not happy about it. So putting a badge in actually gets rid of those clicks. They badge in or they tap in, and they're in. They're in. There's no clicks.
Correct, and that was one of the big selling points that we use. Is here we can, with this badge, you tap it on the USB reader and it launches your desktop. It logs you into Cerner PowerChart, or there's a couple other apps that we support also, and so they're not spending all that time on the keyboard clicking and entering user IDs and passwords. So we've saved them a lot of keystrokes and a lot of clicks by doing this.
Awesome. So Jordan, let's go to the next slide and talk about what this whole stack of the solution looks like, because this is not some cookie cutter solution. It's healthcare specific, built specific for you folks at custom for Munson. Mm-hmm. So we built it on Citrix NetScalers. There's 4 of them in your environment because you have 2 data centers, so we're doing some remote access and load balancing with those NetScalers. And we're using Citrix, both Zen Desktop to deliver a true virtual desktop for the high-end use cases, and we're using Zen App and published desktops for the standard use cases, for the clinical use. And then we talked about Improvada. Improvada provides for us the single sign-on factor, so we're removing all those password headaches. It also provides the authentication management, which is the badge tapping, and includes those passive proximity readers. And then Absence, we touched on that very briefly. That's doing some user personalization for you, application licensing compliance, and some performance management for the Zen app workloads. And then on the back end behind that, you have Cisco UCS servers. And you want to talk a little bit about your EMC SAN behind all of that?
Yeah, we purchased EMC's Extreme IO, which is their all-flash array. It has built-in dedupe and thin provisioning, and what we found with a virtual desktop environment is so much of the data is redundant. Your Windows Server, Win 7 desktop, I mean, if you have 100 of them, probably 90% of that information is all the same. And so what we found with the Extreme IO is we provisioned, it's a 7 terabyte box, and we've provisioned out 14 terabytes so far, and we're actually consuming actual physical disk space that we are consuming is 1.6 terabytes. So the dedupe and the flash really helped with deploying our virtual clinical workstation and our virtual desktops.
Awesome. So a couple more things I want to point out while we're sitting on the screen, and that is, you have a Citrix background behind you, but I know that from Coretek's perspective, this solution can be integrated with Vue as well as the VDI flavor of choice. And the other thing I want to point out about the Absence piece of this, because I think that's probably a piece of technology that a lot of people are not that familiar with, but what we see commonly in places that are thinking about or kicking the tires on VDI is that you think about a non-persistent desktop and how everyone loses their personalization, and Absence, just one piece of Absence, is not all that it does, but one piece of Absence allows you to give that personalization back. So they can have a true personal experience by being able to customize their backgrounds and keep their shortcuts and things like that, but on a lower cost PDPA desktop model. So lower cost to go PDPA, and yet keep the virtualization that you sometimes lose when you go to VDI. So a lot of different ways that we can slice and dice this solution. All right, sorry about that, Jordan. Go ahead and let's get to the next slide. So at the end of the day, Scott, tell us, do you have happy users now?
We do. Our users are ecstatic. They no longer see the computer as a pain in their side every day. They use it just like, like I said, we wanted to make it as simple as the stethoscope. They use that. They've got the applications they need. It's there for them when they need it. The logins are quickly. It follows them. As in one of the other slides, we even have follow me printing. So when they go to print their reports or documentation or discharge papers, what have you, it's going to print out to a printer that's close in proximity to them. And as you can see on the slide, 80% provider satisfaction rating, which is huge. We've never had that before. And it's to the point now that a lot of the clinicians are looking at, hey, can we get our virtual clinical workstation here, or can we get it here? We see a benefit for it here, which a lot of times we very rarely see the clinicians wanting us to move technology into a certain area, and we are with this. And so we feel we've been very successful with this. Our end users are very, very happy, and it's been a big win for us in IT.
Yeah, that's huge, absolutely huge. So, but we didn't solve all the challenges. So the first go around, the first big group of users, the clinical users, that was about 80% of your workforce, and we were able to solve most of their challenges with a published desktop and published apps. And yet when we went to the more, the higher end use cases, where you had to do some other application integration, started to run into some other challenges. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, basically, there are two major applications for us right now that prevented us from having a higher success rate as far as adopting the virtual clinical workstation, and that was drag and dictation was one of the first ones. We do have that working in a Citrix published desktop environment, but we're only, due to performance, we're only able to get 2 to 3 users per published desktop, and it's really not, and the performance is not all that great. The providers have learned to kind of pause and let Dragon catch up to them. It's usable, but it's not the same performance as what you get on if you were to install the Dragon on a regular PC. The other one was Single Dynamics, which we could not get to work at all in a Citrix environment, or what we call our virtual clinical workstation. It's not supported. We tried to make it work. We tried to work with Single, and they don't support it. But those were two big ones that kept us from having a higher success rate with our virtual clinical workstation.
Right, and those are huge applications. It's not like you could ignore those. So, and in comes Unidesk to the rescue. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Tom Rhodes, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for Unidesk. And I'd like to hear his story and how Unidesk is solving that challenge for Munson.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Cindy. And so I'm just going to take you through a couple quick slides on Unidesk. We are rapidly emerging as the VDI management platform that makes it much easier to operationalize day-to-day management of virtual desktops. Traditionally, IT has had to struggle with a bunch of single tools that kind of come as freebies with the brokers, either Citrix Desktop or VMware Horizon View. And what Unidesk does is with one holistic platform, we allow IT to really manage desktops, create desktops, deliver applications, manage Windows images, optimize storage, pretty much everything you've got to do on a day-to-day basis with one holistic solution. And that's propelled our growth to now 800 customers in the last few years. And initially we were working mostly with state, local government, higher education, but now recently we've really taken off in healthcare and are very pleased to be working with Coretek to expand our healthcare footprint. We now have a number of customers using Unidesk to deliver a lot of clinical applications, especially the EMR applications like Epic, Allscripts, Cerner hosted, McKesson, and other clinical applications like PACS. And the way we do that is through our layering technology, which I'll talk about in a second. So what does Unidesk do for you? Well, I think Scott's already kind of alluded to a couple of things. Without Unidesk, we find that many customers struggle to virtualize applications, and many of our healthcare customers have literally hundreds of apps across their different business units and departments. All the clinical apps plus all the standard Office applications. And trying to stream those or virtualize those with traditional isolation technology is very difficult. As Scott just said, not all applications are supported. And the big challenge with application virtualization is that it isolates apps in their own bubbles. So many healthcare applications, especially like PACS and EMR, they have to work together and they have to cross-communicate and integrate. And with isolated applications, you can't do that. So that's a big challenge. And then when you can't virtualize all the applications, you have to deliver them some way. So a number of our healthcare customers end up having lots of different gold images that they end up building for different departments and pools to deliver their different applications. So management really becomes kind of a nightmare in trying to maintain day-to-day operations of VDI. The second big area of challenges is personalization. AppSense is an awesome tool to help with that. It can capture some customizations, like profile settings. But we have some of our healthcare customers need fully persistent desktops that capture everything, including user-installed applications and plugins. And that's really where Unidesk comes into play also, is we can provide fully persistent desktops that capture everything. And then on the bottom, you'll see that we do all that with a very, very low storage footprint. We'll talk about how our layering technology works, and Jeff on our team is going to show a quick demo of it. But essentially, we're able to store all the different components of the Windows desktop, all the applications and Windows itself, as layers that are stored once as shared read-only VMDKs. And that really cuts down your storage footprint for both persistent and non-persistent desktops to actually less than what you can achieve with link clones or even Citrix Provisioning Server or machine creation services. So that's without Unidesk. So with Unidesk, all applications can be layered very quickly by anybody. We have a number of customers that can even have their interns, IT interns, packaging applications in layers. And the really cool thing about Unidesk layers is that all the apps act as if they're locally installed. So they show up to Windows and each other as if they're all natively installed on the file system. So they're not isolated and they have no problem interacting. So when you have EMR, that's such a core application in healthcare, needing to integrate with Crystal Reports or PACS, there's no problem doing that. And because all applications can be layered so quickly and easily, you can truly have one gold image for all desktops. So all use cases, all desktops, persistent or non-persistent, you could have one gold image for all of them that's clean. And that makes patching super easy because you're only doing it once. On the right-hand side, you can see that we can provide full persistent desktops that capture all customizations. So we have a number of our customers using AppSense on top of Unidesk non-persistent desktops. And we also have some customers who are using Unidesk to provide full persistence for all their clinical users so that everything is captured and they have that true follow-me experience. And then again, in the bottom section, you'll see in the storage area, our layering technology, which shares, in one instance of all the application and OS layers across many VMs, the storage footprint per desktop ranges between 2 and 10 gigabytes, so really, really small. So how do we do that? We're doing it with what we call layering technology. So Unidesk has invented the way of basically containerizing or breaking out Windows into its core components. So think of building desktops like Lego blocks. You're going to start with a clean Windows OS layer. You'll have one for all desktops. Then you're going to stack on top of that all the applications that your users might need in any combination. And so each of those applications are stored as VMDKs, and Windows itself is stored as a VMDK. And those are stored once and shared across many VMs. And then each VM also has an optional personalization layer, and that's a read-write VMDK that's going to capture all the users' customizations. And Unidesk technology, our magic, is that we know how to merge all those layers together through file system and registry virtualization so that Windows OS layer, the app layers, and the personalization layer all kind of knit together into a virtual C: hard drive that Windows sees and boots off of as if it was a normal physical C drive. So in essence, we're really building C drives for every VM. And those C drives are built out of these common layers that are stored once and shared. So you're patching them once, you're storing them once, very easy to update, and we make it super easy to create custom VMs. And then those VMs can be accessed through any connection broker like Citrix Zen Desktop or Microsoft RDS or VMware Horizon View. And so I think it sounds like, Scott, when you hit the challenges with Singo and Dragon Voice, you went looking for a solution that could help you package that, and that's how you kind of came across Unidesk with the help of Coretek?
Yeah, that's exactly it. We needed some way to improve the performance of Dragon. We needed some way to have Siemens Singo move with our doctors. That was one of the big stumbling blocks we ran into. And so when I got to looking at Unidesk, I'm like, okay, this is an interesting concept. I wonder if it works as well as what all the media hype says on their website. And so we worked with Coretek, we worked with Unidesk, and we got a demo set up, and we've been piloting it, and it really is as easy as what your marketing material says. We were able to, for Dragon, we built our gold image. We were running a single gold image. We then took Dragon and we ran through the normal install. We didn't do anything special with the install. We clicked next, 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 did our couple of, pointed it to the Dragon database server where it stores profiles, finished the install, finalized it, layered it into our gold image desktop, presented that out, and the performance was considerably better than what we were seeing with our virtual clinical workstation. The couple of clinicians that we had test it said, yes, there's a huge improvement over what they're currently using. Didn't quite hit the mark of being as fast as having it installed on a physical workstation, but considerably improved. With Siemens Singo, it was a very similar experience. We weren't quite sure, since Singo was not, they didn't want to virtualize it. They said, no, we don't work in that environment. We were kind of wondering how that would work. We ran through the install, created a layer, had some clinicians that are very Singo savvy test it, and the comment was, wow, this is as good as our desktop or faster. And so two huge stumbling blocks for us for overall satisfaction rating was quickly resolved using Unidesk and their layering technology.
That's awesome, Scott. So, I think as Scott just said, that's the real key, is enabling 100% app delivery, all use cases, all apps. Even complicated apps that have drivers, like even the one-sign agent itself can be layered with Unidesk. And all apps behave as if they're locally installed; they're not isolated, so you have full cross communication. And as Scott said, all apps layered means you can keep Windows really clean. It can just be Windows. The gold image doesn't have to have anything else built into it, and that makes it much easier to patch just one time for all your desktops. Now, it sounds so easy, we thought we would just actually show it to you, because it actually can be that fast. So we thought we'd have Jeff Pitch, one of our solution architects, bring you through layering an application just to show how fast it can be. So we're going to do a quick change. Jeff, you're going to be up. We're going to change presenter over to you and let you show how easy layering really is.
All right, that sounds good. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and what we see here on the screen, hopefully everybody is seeing it, is that these are the application layers that I've got created within my environment. And for us to really create a layer, I always view it as a three-step process. The first step is that you're going to run the Create Layer Wizard. And what this does is it sets up the environment in which you're going to be installing your application or applications into. So much like if you've ever packaged with ThinApp, with AppV, Altiris, SCCM, that type of thing, you always start off with a fresh, clean operating system with the bare minimum on it. So the basic prereqs for the application, and that's really it. And that's exactly what we are setting up by running through this wizard. So here I give the layer a name, I give it a version, and then I tell it which operating system layer I want to base this new application on. In this case, I'm going to choose Windows 7. And then I give it an install machine. And what is an install machine? Really what that is that's our name for a packaging machine. In our case, when they're turned off like this one is here, that's why it's available. It's a virtual machine. It has no software or anything associated with it, so no OS. And so I'm telling it now, this is the operating system that you are going to boot with. So basically, this is a hardware shell of a VM. I'm now telling it we're going to attach this OS to you, and any prerequisites. So let's say I wanted to do an Office add-on. I would want to make sure that Office was there when the install machine boots up. So I checked the box, and sure enough, you know, when the install machine would boot up, it'll have the OS and it will have Office there, so the installer would see it correctly. And then from there, you can choose any JPEG or PNG for an icon, and then you tell it that you want to create a layer. And if I hit create layer, what this will do, this will go out and it will attach those layers to the install machine and boot up the install machine. And what you get is you get a layer, an app layer in editing mode, like this one is here, and this one is here as well. But this is the one we're going to be playing with here. So what that means, when it says it's editing, that means that it's ready for you to log into the install machine and start the installation process. So step 2 is exactly that. Log in and start installing. What you'll notice is that when I log in here, there are no pre or post scripts that are running. Tell it to stop capturing or to start capturing. It really is just a matter of logging in, going to wherever your install files are located. Mine just happened to be local, but if you wanted to have, you know, off the network, off the internet, whatever the case may be, that's perfectly fine. But that's step 2. Log in and immediately start the installation of your software. Our layers, our app layers, can be pretty much anything you want them to be. They can be a single application. They could be multiple applications within the same layer. So say you've got 2 applications that are always delivered together. You can combine them into a single layer and deploy them that way. Or it could be a file or, you know, a registry entry that you want delivered down to the desktop as well. So once the installation is done, what you simply move on to step 3, and we come over here to the layer that we are editing, and you finalize it. And when this starts the finalization process, it's automatically going to go out, shut down the install machine. Once the install machine is fully shut down, it's going to do 2 things. The finalization process is going to do 2 things. It's going to turn the new layer into a read-only layer so that it can be shared across many desktops. As Tom mentioned, that's how we get our storage savings, that our app layers are shared across many desktops per data store. And then it's going to reconfigure the install machine so that it can be reused to create other layers. So in fact, this one is already done. It's already deployable, so I can push this out to my desktops, whether it's I want to push it out to an existing desktop, I want to create new desktops using it, I can go ahead and do that. But really, the reason that I like to do Qt PDF, you know, I mean, it's a very small program, very simple for what it does, but very difficult for an AppV or a thin app to capture simply because it is a driver and it has to get low level into the operating system that typically the isolation technologies simply cannot do. So once I'm done with that, I can come over to my desktop view and I could edit a single desktop, I can edit multiple desktops, I can edit all of my desktops and deploy out this new application layer out to my desktops that are existing, or like I said, I could bring up and create new desktops that are using that new application layer. And that's really all there is to creating an application layer. 3-step process, very simple: wizard, install, finalization.
So a few questions did come in, which we'll answer here. We'll ask Scott also. I just wanted to say a few quick words about some of the other deployments that we have at Unidesk. I saw one question came in, and it asked, does Imprivata, and I think, you know, by Imprivata they also meant, you know, overall, does this VDI solution work with all the different EMR applications? I think they mentioned Epic. So what's interesting here is we have examples of 4 different customers who are using different EMRs with Unidesk, and I think most of these customers have Imprivata as well. USF Health is Allscripts, and they're using Unidesk and VMware Horizon View. Group Health Center is using Epic with Imprivata and Horizon View. Sunrise Health Region is a Zen Desktop, like Munson is, with I believe they have Allscripts, does that sound right? And they have Imprivata as well and AppSense, so a similar stack to what Munson has. And Shannon Medical is McKesson Paragon with Horizon View, Unidesk, and Imprivata. So good examples of customers who have deployed a similar stack but with different brokers and different EMR applications, but are having pretty wide-scale production success with this stack. And actually, all these customers have offered to have you connect with them on LinkedIn, email them directly, and they said feel free to have them share questions or talk to us about best practices. They're happy to share what they've learned, and also pick your brains about what you might have seen in your VDI rollouts as well. So with that, we did have one other question that came in also, which is Unidesk obviously addresses the application delivery challenge in VDI, but people are asking, well, what components of a typical VDI stack does Unidesk replace? And so just to be very clear, Unidesk is an end-to-end platform, so for VDI management. So in a VMware Horizon View environment, we replace link clones because we provide greater storage savings. There's no need for View Composer because we provision all the desktops directly through vCenter APIs. You can still use ThinApp if you want, but most customers are using Unidesk to deliver all the applications as layers, and then sometimes using ThinApp to simply isolate a few applications and then deliver that isolated package as a Unidesk layer. View Persona or any kind of profile management tool is also optional. You can use it with Unidesk, if you, like Munson is, using AppSense on top of our non-persistent desktops, or if you're a smaller firm and you don't want to deal with the overhead of profile management, you can also deploy fully persistent desktops with Unidesk. So that's the VMware stack. On the Citrix side, Unidesk replaces provisioning server, machine creation services. Again, XenApp and AppV are optional because you can deliver all the apps as layers. Profile management, personal vDisk, and vDisk storage technology, all those are optional because Unidesk does it all end-to-end. So that should give you kind of a clearer picture of how these customers you're seeing on the screen are using Unidesk for day-to-day management. And I think all will say that Unidesk has allowed them to really operationalize VDI. Just 2 months ago, Gartner came out with a report saying, what's the big blocker to hosted virtual desktops? And they said complexity is the #2 barrier to VDI deployments and needing Tier 2 or Tier 3 architects to manage VDI day-to-day. All these customers will tell you that with Unidesk, they're able to transition VDI operations to Tier 1 staff and free up those Tier 2, Tier 3 resources to do more of the strategic forward-looking projects and really operationalize VDI at lower cost. So I think I think I answered some of the questions that came in, Cindy. There's a couple more that came in that probably for Scott, and I'm going to ask those to Scott now. Scott, one was you spoke about reducing office costs by, I guess, application metering with AppSense. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, basically, when you sign up for your Microsoft ELA, you license it per workstation, per user when you're buying your products. What we were able to do is, because we brought in AppSense, we were able to say, look, we only use Office on X number of workstations and we're limiting it with AppSense. And Microsoft said, okay, we accept that because we know that AppSense is able to properly monitor application usage, so we will let you reduce the number of Office licenses that you have on your ELA. That's how we were able to get the savings there. And as far as I know, AppSense is the only application that Microsoft will let you do that with at this time.
Okay, and the other question is, can you expound on follow me printing? Like, are you using location-based printing? What are you using to allow users to print, nearest to them wherever they log in from?
Yeah, with location-based printing, what we do is when the user taps in, we have some background scripts that AppSense kicks off on when the user taps their badge to the USB card reader. There's some scripts that launch that reads the physical PC that they are logging into. It reads the number off of that, and then in Active Directory we have these physical workstations assigned to what we call printer groups, and in each of those groups there's 3 printers that that they're associated with, and we define one of those as the default printer, which would be the one closest to that workstation. And what that script does is then maps those printers into the published desktop for the end users, and then they're able to print. So when they go to log out and go to another one, that script kicks off again, finds out where that workstation is, reads the Active Directory groups that it's a member of, figures out which one's the default, and then maps the printers accordingly.
Great.
Tom,
And
I'd like to
one
expound on that. Oh, sorry, can I add a little bit to that? So phase two for you, okay, phase two for Scott and the folks at Munson is that we're looking at some pool printing solutions next. And in a pool, so what Scott is describing is the location-aware printing. Phase two, or an enhancement to their solution, will be to go to a pool printing scenario where we would put the same sort of card readers on the printers, so that for, let's say, sensitive documents or something that you know that you want to print but you're going to pick up later, pick it back up in your office, you can kick off the print job and then choose to go get it at your printer of choice by tapping your badge wherever you end up next. So that's kind of a phase two that we're looking at for those folks.
Great. And another question, probably for both you guys, Cindy and Scott, is you talked about hardening the Windows PCs and reusing them as thin terminals. Are you looking at going to BYOD? And how does the virtual clinical workstation complement any kind of bring your own device initiatives?
That is something that we're looking at. We know that as Apple and Samsung and all these people release these new tablets, new phones and stuff, and the doctors are becoming more mobile, that's becoming more and more of a issue. And so we are looking at Citrix mobile device management to allow them to get into our system and manage that. But I don't see the hardened workstations going away. I don't see a lot of the nurses not bringing in their own devices. They basically come in, they do their job. They don't bring technology with them. Where we see a lot of that is more on the provider or the doctor side. I see them, they bring in their tablets and their phones and stuff, and they want to be able to do their job on their phone. So we are working towards that. That's still in very early phases of figuring out how we want to address those issues.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent with what these other customers you're seeing on the slide here are saying. I was just talking to Sharanga at Sunrise Health just a few weeks ago, and he was saying that I think most of these customers are doing BYOD just for the doctors, as you said, Scott. And he was actually saying that not being able to do that, not being able to support the Apple iPads and other devices before they had VDI was causing them to lose clinicians, lose doctors. They didn't want to come to their facility because they didn't support that. And so the quality of healthcare, the quality of the doctor they had was going down. So they felt that BYOD, at least at Sunrise, and I think Shannon said the same thing, that's really helped them attract the best of the best doctors, enticing them with that BYOD support. Okay, there's one other question. This is a good one. It says, and Scott, for you probably, it says, can you speak to the level of your IT staffing since you've moved to the virtual clinical workstation? Has it gone down? Has it gone up? Fewer PC techs. Can the PC techs who manage your physical PCs still manage VDI?
Yeah, just in my department alone, which is servers and desktops, we are actually, through budget cuts and attrition and people leaving and moving on, we are actually down 3 employees over what we were, say, 3 years ago. And those positions, those FTEs are not being replaced. And so with things like the virtual clinical workstation and Unidesk, we're able to still provide a high level of service to our customers with the reduced staff. And without these, if we continue to do things the way we had been doing in the past, I don't see how we could support them in the fashion that we do now.
Yeah, that's great. I think Cindy mentioned that doing more with less is a key driver now in healthcare, obviously, and we're seeing that. These 4 customers will say the same thing. They can manage more, greater service, faster application delivery, faster provisioning of desktops, onboarding, offboarding with less staff, and that's really the key of VDI, is to provide operational efficiencies and cost savings, because the CapEx is typically at best to break even.
Right, and you hit it on it earlier too with Unidesk and the application layering. As simple as it is, we can get some of our junior analysts to run through application installs and layer those in, and then if there's more complicated issues or something's not working right or we're not getting the performance, then we can engage the higher level analyst that kind of work with them hand in hand and say, all right, what do we need to do to optimize that? So it allows us to free up our time to go on and do more of the architectural design and future thinking for the organization.
Well, that's terrific, Scott. So, Cindy, that's all the questions. Do you have, you want to tie it up?
I would be happy to. So just one last point I'd like to make from Coretek's perspective regarding all the different EMR applications out there. And from our perspective as well, just like Unidesk and Improvada and AppSense, there isn't an EMR out there that we haven't worked with in some fashion. And the same thing with our solution regarding of the stack, whether it's on Citrix or Vue, we can work with any EMR application. And we're happy to come in and talk to anyone who's kind of kicking the tires or thinking about some solutions like this, and have some meetings with you, share some budgets with you, and we have some great ROI tools and budget worksheets, and help you through those early thought processes on figuring out if this is the right road for you to go down or not. So really appreciate working with Unidesk. We really appreciate Munson as a client. They're just so wonderful to work with, and we're working together on a lot of other collaborative efforts as well, specific to their Cerner and Citrix, and making their solution even more streamlined and custom for their clinical workflow. So thank you all for setting this up, and everyone who's attending today will get a copy of the deck. And as Jordan mentioned in the beginning, it has been recorded and it will be posted on Unidesk's website. And I'm sure everyone will get a follow-up email from all of us as well on what potential next steps might be. And we're happy to work with you all. Thank you again for this great time together.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.